Hello, welcome to a visual novel called Tomorrow Will Be Dying. This is prologue. The full game is not out yet, and I hope to play the full game if this is really good. Um, I don't know much about this game. I didn't really look into it. I decided to go in blind. So let us see what this game is about. I sing of brooks of blossoms, birds, and bowers, of April, May, and June and July flowers. I sing of maypoles, hot carts, wassails, and wakes, of bridegrooms, brides, and of their bridal cakes. I write of youth, of love, and have access by these to sing of gloomy wantonness. I sing of dews, of rains, and piece by piece, of balm, of oil, of spice, and ambergris. I think that's, I'm assuming supposed to rhyme. I sing of times trans-shifting, and I write how roses first came red and lilies white. I write of groves of twilights, and I sing the court of Mob and of the fairy king. I write of hell, I sing and ever shall, of heaven and hope to have it after all. Argument of his book, Robert Herrick. Oh, oh, that's loud. That, that's still a little loud. Yes, okay. In a few minutes, we will be arriving at the Mokuzai terminal. Harry glances up from her phone to look at the signs inside the train. Sure enough, Mokozaki is displayed in large electronic orange characters. He takes out her earbud and taps her phone to pause the audiobook playing, pink fake nail clacking against the screen. After ensuring she has everything with her in her pockets and bags, she stretches out her limbs, letting out a soft hum of satisfaction. The journey here was quite the chaotic one. Whether dealing with the poorly concealed gawking of passers-by, getting lost in the gigantic waves of bodies pushing her to and fro, or leaving all her belongings on the express train, she's exhausted with it all. Sitting here in this empty, rundown train with nothing but its rattling ambiance to accompany her, a refreshing feeling washes over her like a gentle tide. Aria loves nights in Tokyo filled with bright, colorful lights, bustling crowds, and undying liveliness. But there is something she misses about the quiet nights in Mokuzai, where the only thing you can see are your own 2 feet. One reason she can indubitably name for this is that she misses her family back home. Visions of their small fishing business by the sea floats in her mind and a warm feeling spreads throughout her chest. I hope they've been doing all right without me. Harry smiles to herself, fiddling with the whale phone charm that they gifted her on the day of her departure to Tokyo. Playing with a charm like this strikes a chord from deep within, the action vaguely reminding her of something, someone, pulling forth the face she hasn't thought about in a long time to the surface. Her mind is suddenly filled with visions of short black hair that danced in the wind and stoic yet gentle eyes. An image that was nearly forgotten until the memories of her time in Mokuzai. I'm just gonna call it Moku for now, because I'm gonna keep butchering that. Came flooding back. It was probably illogical how often and how easily Eri linked her hometown with the particular verdant gaze. Whenever Eri happened to cross her Ashikaga Shion by her lonesome, the other would be playing with her magical girl phone charm just like this, seemingly unbothered by the fact that she was alone. And yet, if Eri squinted, she could find an air of sadness past the vacancy at the edge of the isolated sphere. Eri rubs a thumb over her now warmed whale phone charm, allowing herself to reminisce over the enigmatic individual. Under the blaze of the setting summer sun, amidst the cries of evening cicadas, one of their school mysteries, albeit a rather asinine one, was unraveled. on that day, Eri was set into motion. Okay, I don't know what this is about, and I'm not getting any clues to what this is about. Hmm. Hmm, hmm, hmm. The music. Oh God. It's still. Why did it get so loud? Okay. Eri explored a multitude of hobbies growing up. Track and field happened to be the one she'd stick. That the one to stick when she explored the different clubs in her first year of high school. That being said, when Eri pursued something, she would always put 100% into it. She genuinely loved running. She loved it more than anything in the world at the time. Everyone always said she had a one-track mind, but it was thanks to that one-track mind that she brushed off any such mean-spirited statements. The art style is very cute. I like this. Which is why even when carrying a big stack of yellow cones to the sports field, she couldn't help but run, the June sun being against her back even in the early morning. As she started placing cones throughout the field, she heard the rattling of a fence behind her. Turning around, she was greeted with the sight of her little brother, Masaru, climbing over it. Masaru! She threw the rest of the cones aside and sprinted towards him. Even with her speed, he already reached the top of the fence by the time she was there. He then jumped, grabbed onto the nearby tree branch, and promptly swinging down from it, landed nimbly on his feet. How many times have I told you not to come into school like that? Come to school that way. You could just sneak in through the gates. It's faster, he shrugged. Harry had no idea where he got this brusque attitude from, and she had even less than an idea where he got an inkling to dye the ends of his hair. Not missing a beat, he took off his blue Randasuro backpack and brought out lunch box wrapped in a fish pattern cloth. The tag of the corner of said cloth had Aries' name on it. You forgot your lunch this morning. Ha, thanks, Masaru. He sighed and took it from his hands. Airi was relied on for preparation of the entire family's lunches and had carried away in the whirlwind of busy work. She quickly unwrapped the cloths and checked on the box content, relieved to find each carefully prepared side dish remained accounted for. Any desire to scold her brother dissipated, and instead she almost burst into tears at the sight. Alright, adios, he saluted and began to climb up the tree, but Aries spotted something stuck to the bottom of his sneaker and swiftly grabbed his ankle. Wait! What? He quietly hissed back, backlit by the sun lit beyond the tree leaves. Trusting her brother's grip on the branches, she turned his foot over and stared bewilderedly at the dusty sole, or more specifically something stuck to it. What? I said. Ari hesitated for some reason, opting to shield the offending item from her brother's supposedly innocent eyes. In the heat of the moment, she thought she might also dispose of it before he can unceremoniously track bits into his elementary school. It's a cigarette, a new voice said matter-of-factly. Having nearly jumped out of her skin, Ari checked out over her shoulder to identify the speaker. Ninja? Is that her name? Standing there was the track team captain, Tsukimi? Tsukimi. She wouldn't bat an eyelash at Masaru being used to him at randomly appearing at club practices every now and then. Barry couldn't help but panic. Captain, this isn't what you think. Barry stammered wildly as she tried to get the cigarette out of Tsukimi's line of sight. Her effort only led to Masaru's feet slamming in her face and as it jerked from being twisted about unnaturally. There's no use in hiding it. Look at your feet, Barry gingerly pinching the crushed butt between her fingers. Did as she told, her eyes fall to the grass pit under her feet. She was surprised to find a cigarette remained scattered all around. I've been seeing these collect by the tree for the past few days. I did mean to report to the teacher, but it slipped my mind. What with the meet being just around the corner. Ah. Harry nodded in understanding, relieved to have avoided an unnecessary lecture. Well, you should get it done sooner than later. There's no way I'm letting some hooligans get away with throwing cigarettes at this poor tree. Agreed. Which is why you'll be going in my steed. Steed? Eh? You were the one who locked up the equipment shed yesterday, right? I was just about to set up some hurdles when I noticed the equipment was missing. Tsukimi started looking straight at Eri with a scrutinizing gaze. One of the pole vaulting bolts. What? No way. You're saying it was my fault? We're also missing track spikes and jumping boxes, while Baro, Aries' underclassman, and shot put extraordinaire added helpfully. Tsukimi raised a brow and simply placed her fists at her hips admonishingly. Ari began to sweat under her stare. There's no way I'm scatterbrained enough to have left the shed unlocked, she thought. However, the captain's cold eyes led her to doubt her own memory. Her suspicions wouldn't have been baseless either. Last month it was a whole pack of relay buttons. This wasn't particularly serious, however, as they only had one extra vaulting pole. Tsukimi finally relented, turning away with a sigh. I'm not trying to be mean. In circumstances like this, I have to consider all options. Either way, the others will more likely place the blame on you, so it's best to interest to figure out the equipment issue. Might as well report the cigarettes at the office while you're there. Having said her piece, Tsukimi left and began setting up for practice. Bara gave Ari a shrug and shortly followed suit. Seriously, why are you so forgetful? You're still here? Ari's gaze follows Masaru's finger, pointing to the foot which she had been holding onto the entire time, squeezing it as if it was a stress ball. Once she released his leg with a murmured oops, she could clearly see the handprint she left imprinted on his skin. Now freed from her grasp, Masaru climbed up the tree like a monkey, and once he found stable footing on top of the metal fence, he called out to his sister. I know you're going to beat yourself up over a small mistake like this, so just clear your name and everything will be fine. Fight for a better day, that's what you always say, right? Masaru flashed a small smile before hopping down from the fence and sauntering off. After a few seconds of watching him leave and making sure he was walking in the correct direction towards the elementary school, Ari laughed through her nose and jogged towards the field, helping set up the rest of the equipment as more track team members filtered in. Alright, we'll look into it, teacher, Sake-sensei said while jotting down the final notes of the report. Picking up on his dismissive tone, Ari reiterated the price of the missing tools. Oh no, I get it. It's just considering how many things have turned out in the past, he trailed off, turned towards the window, airing himself out by the shirt collar. Damn sure is hot these days. Oi, Kozumi, since you're here, why don't we discuss your science grades? Harry unconsciously jerked back the sudden full frontal attack. Oh, what she would subject herself to in obedience to her captain, the captain. Pop quiz for you. How many Earths would it take to fit in the sun? I'll give you a hint. The sun is massive. Hey, hey, I almost forgot. You know that plum tree by the fence? You found some cigarettes around there. Isn't that tree like a national treasure or something? Cigarettes, huh? He stretched and after leaning back in the chair, let out a short but exhausted groan. Must be Sakai. Either her or one of the other. The bad Ashikaga. The bad Ashikaga? Oh, sorry, there's two Ashikagas in the school, so I say that to avoid the confusion. You should know her. The track team dropout, he sighed. No relation or anything, by the way. Eddie then recalled something she'd heard a few months ago on the track field. Did you hear? Did you hear? What? Apparently Ashikaga must start hanging out with the delinquent girl. What, you mean the tea ceremony girl? No way, right? I wonder how things ended up like that. I mean, what a waste of talent, huh? Hey, that's enough rumor mongering, you two. You'll never break records wasting time like that. Once the bell signifying lunch period rang out, Eddie went straight to investigating. She had to confirmed that her friends with whom she usually eat lunch knew very little about the two suspects pointed out by Sake-sensei. Never imagined that she could manage to scarf down a massive lunch like hers while sleuthing about, and was quite impressed with herself afterwards. Oh, the tea ceremony girl? If anyone stole your track and field equipment, it'd be her. Yeah, that crazy girl threw Sake-sensei's lunchbox out the school. The the occult club? You've never heard of it? How's that even possible? Your former prince is a part of it, you know. Hmm, I see them make trouble all over the place, so I'm not really sure where they hang out. You could try asking Hatagaki Hoji guy, though. He's in the same class as Ashikaga. I think he's class rep. I see them talking every so often. Hatagaki Koji. Eri remembered him making a big deal about the justice and such during his run for student presidents. I can read, I promise. I'm just struggling today, man. Ha, Ashikaga? Why ask me? I heard from reliable sources that you two talk from time to time. You're the class rep, aren't you? It makes sense that you'd be keeping tabs on, Uh, no, he said very slowly while glancing around. Wait, you're not? But, but my reliable source. He would just assume that because I pick up on all our actual representatives' slack. It's a real hassle. Hmm, huh. Hold on, does that mean you're actually friends with Ashikaga? Even better, you've gotta know where she hangs out at lunch at least. Friends? I'm not really sure I'd say that either. Hatagaki, Hatagaki becomes noticeably fidgety, a bead of sweat trickling down from his temple. I guess I've noticed that every time lunch starts, she makes a beeline for the door and goes upstairs. That's it, he mumbled, scratching his cheek while staring intently at the floor. The stairs. Either she was heading to the third year classroom or she would climb all the way up to the top, the rooftop. Gotcha, thanks. So you really don't know anything else? How about someone else called Sakai? I heard she was part of the tea ceremony club before it closed down last year. I don't know anything about that, gorilla. Now, excuse me, I should be heading back to class. That's insane. Okay. Calling someone a gorilla is wild, but okay. And hiding his unnaturally pale face, he shuffled off robotically. For some reason, she could sense some sort of shame from him, but didn't dwell on it. Almost breaking into the run in the hallway was something for which she had gotten in trouble many times in the past. She made her way up the stairs, 2 steps at a time. Thanks to team members and classmates that made it their business to keep track of such things. She, on her part, had no idea school even had such a club until moments ago. Ari managed to find herself face to face with one of the named delinquents on the stairs leading to the rooftop. So are you accusing me of stealing it? She's so pretty. No, it's something like that. She certainly didn't look the part of delinquent that had been built up. Even so, Ari began to falter under the pressure of Sakai's gaze, which she could swear was piercing right through her half-baked lie. Such an icy cold glare, Ari thought. Maybe all those rumors were true after all. Well, I'm listening. She enacted in her mind over and over on the way. You hooligan, she'd shout, pointing a finger at Justice at the evildoer who'd melt in a puddle of confession on the spot. Ari inwardly scoffed at herself for thinking for even a moment she could stand up for any cause and resorted to Plan B, the much more realistic course of action. You're a part of an occult club, right? What of it? I was hoping you could do something to help me find it? Don't you guys like consult ghosts or something? Ari stammered, saying the first thing she could think of. No, I can't say we've done anything along those lines. Our club is still young. Eh? Well, that's fine. What do you do, if you don't mind me asking? Nothing really. If you want, maybe I can forward your request to our club president. Your story is exactly the type to get him all riled up. Oh, better yet, you can tell him yourself. Harry reluctantly followed the head of the cascading hair down the hallway to the unused classroom, only to find the door wouldn't open no matter how hard they pulled. Sakai pressed her ears against it listening and stepped back with a sigh, then tapped her foot impatiently. Ah, I can come back another day. Ignoring, ignoring her, Sakai started banging on the door and called out in a loud voice. Hey, Prez, I know you're in there. Open up. Hey, are you really sure he's in? Call it a supernatural intuition. Be right back. Please wait right here. Sakai returned with a paper fan and something wrapped in tinfoil. Just watch quietly. Sakai set something down on the ground and started fanning the scent towards the door. Sniffing, Eri finally identified that something as a baked potato. Soon enough, the door unlocked and slid open. You can't just resist, can you? Ah, and an unassuming, sleepy-looking boy stumbled out of the dark room but froze upon realizing he'd been tricked. Harry silently played spectator as the probable president lifted his eyes only to be greeted by a wicked grin. With a flick of the wrist, Sakai dramatically clacked her fan shut, causing the boy opposite to blink. Don't be too angry with me, Prez. You wouldn't answer any of our calls, so this is the only way I could get through to you. I won't reprimand you as long as I get to eat that, he said heavily. Help yourself. As if a ravenous wolf, he tore off the tinfoil into a face first into a piping hot potato. Thanks, Sakurai-san, he said with a burnt tongue. She grinned widely. That's Sakai, actually. But feel free to call me whatever you like. Is that any good? Bien. Sakai slaps him across the shoulder ostentatiously. Well, Prez, you look rather relaxed this evening. I didn't interrupt a nice dream or anything, did I? I get the feeling that it was nice, but I can barely remember it. He took another bite. Feeling Sakai's stare, he slowed his chewing and swallowed, nervously shifting his eyes between the two girls in front of him. Airi straightened her posture a bit as he finally seemed awake enough to notice her presence. You're not expecting something in return for this, are you? Oh, nothing more than your gentle counsel. Sakai then patted Airi on the shoulder, prompting her to speak. By this point, it had been beyond Sakai's to try and recall the detail of Airi's request. Excuse me. My name is Koizumi. I was hoping you would listen to my request. My request for the occult club. I'm afraid our club meetings are every other day other than today, Thursday, and we sometimes do weekends. He turned towards Sakai. I would have expected you to know this. I did think this might interest you. Hear her out, why don't you? We're not exactly the request-taking type of club. It's about time our dinky little group made a contribution to society, don't you think? Please, Ari bowed, facing the floor. Looking down at her, he scratched the back of his head and yawned. I somehow doubt Sakai-san of all people would know what interests me, but I'll hear you out. Really? Thank you. Ari relayed all the facts about the missing track equipment to him. As she spoke, she noted how the boy's flitted eyes grew more vigilant, and how he began to nod intently throughout her explanation. Come to think of it, I think that's one of the seven mysteries of our school, a ghost that steals athletic equipment. I believe you missed some details, or possibly added some. I don't remember anything quite as lame as that. It's a very serious problem. In fact, we are studying those mysteries, though we're going in order, and that's the fifth one if memory serves. We haven't even made a dent in the first one. Takada begins to walk off in the middle of her sentence. Hey, where are you going? Are we taking this request or not? Of course we are, but not recklessly. Have you seen our other members today? Not today, no. Last I saw her was yesterday. I needed to fix something up, and she completely ignored me. Sakai shifted her eyes to the ceiling. Something tells me she won't be up for this either. And why might that be? Well, considering who's asking, she was interrupted again, this time by a yawn. First, caffeine. Oh, where are my manners? I'm Takada. I look forward to working with you. On account of the summer heat, I rarely spurned the idea of a visit to the school rooftop, but with the potential meeting with Ashikaga weighing on her mind, her steps became even heavier. The loss of Formula E on the track team wasn't explosive in the least, but had it been so, things might have been easier right now. Instead of any true bitterness or hard feelings, a mere indifference had pervaded, which at least on Aries' part could only be perceived as a constant state of limbo in which unspoken feelings were buried and stored away to burden those involved. The feelings that felt as though it would last the rest of their high school careers. It wasn't until the quiet drama of last year's incident that Ari fully realized how daft you could be when picking up on social cues. At first, she thought it only a minor setback, slowly knowing she couldn't overcome if she had only worked hard enough. The naive, youthful confidence was thrown to the wind, the indomitable spirit that she believed herself to possess torn to shreds by unending soul-draining apathy offered by each of her peers. It was only that year, with the recruitment of the fresh first years, that things finally started to look up, though Ari had yet to shed the title Tiger of the track team. That is to say, she still played the role of pack mule to muscle in an attempt to keep spirits up. So much for the incident as the person, Ashikaga herself outside to allow congratulations and other routines. Court team proceedings, Aries' interactions with her were relatively sparse. Still, Aries harbored nothing but admiration for her, though said admiration was understandably tempered by the captain's barely hidden coldness towards their former star. As much as Aries would have liked to lead them to reconciliation, any attempt at forcing it would feel like really poking at open wounds. All is to say, she had no idea how to approach I should say Ash. No idea how to approach Ash, much less inquire into the cigarette situation. No, she thought to herself. As long as I treat her like anyone else, things will work out. She went on her mind as they climbed again the steps towards the roof, convincing herself that if she could leverage her admittedly excessive curiosity about Ash, perhaps that would break down any barriers. Psyching herself up inwardly led towards nearly tripping over herself outwardly, interrupting some quiet, trivial banter between the two guides. Uh, I'm okay, she cried. Takada helped Eri stabilize while Sakai, who let out a short huff of amusement, made her way to the door. I was under the impression that the rooftop was off limits. It's a bit of a miracle that we managed to get permission. I guess you could put it that way. She sighed. Don't know why I had fought so hard for it in the first place. Hardly spend any time up here. Do I even want to know what happened? Eri thought to herself. Takada, as if reading her mind, continued. Long story short, it took a lot of persistence, and just the right amount of exhaustion on the teacher's part. If anyone asks, we were looking for UFOs up here, alright? Eri's eyes narrowed as her vision was enveloped in the brilliant azure of the sky. Ash turned at the sound, wasting no movement as always as Eri watched this. She was struck by the restful expression worn on her face, which communicated a restful or perhaps wasteful year out of the limelight. Put another way, it was as though she didn't have the extra energy to expend on movement in the first place. After a short burst of wind provided some much needed temperature regularization, Eri shook herself from her observations and bowed toward Ash. Good afternoon. Ash could only blink at the sudden address, though she could barely hear the words that came out of Eri's mouth. Takada stepped into the binding heat. Glad you're here. Let's solve the fifth mystery. Not today, Ash sharply interjected. Just as quickly as the two arrived, Ash strode past them and just before making her way through the door, turned back to say, I'm sorry. With a short nod to the club client, she fled down the stairs. Eri perplexedly turned back to the remaining occult club members, not sure if how to react to the nonchalant shrug of the two shared. So much for that, Takada said easily. Well, if she's busy, she's busy. Things will be a bit more difficult without our help, but I can't surrender now after that potato. I was certainly discouraged by Ash's curt exit, anticlimactic to say the least. She couldn't help but link the girl's departure with her sudden appearance. However, Sakai and Takada seemed to take no mind to her attitude as though that was business as usual. You suppose she could take this as a reassurance of otherwise. So, a pause. Um, the president peered into Aries' face, hoping to find some hint of the name that evaded him. It's Koizumi, the girls reminded her in unison, Sakai muttering an extra forgetful under her breath. Ah, right, so Kazumi. If I'm understanding this correctly, you're missing your track equipment, no? Mind pointing out where the equipment shed is? It's over here. A motion for the two to follow her as she jogged to the far side of the roof, pointing at the small building with her feet planted on the ledge of the railing. I see, Takada copied her, leaning dangerously over the railing, himself surveying the field. Do you see something? I'm looking for possible blind spots and hidden paths that a thief could use to infiltrate the shed. He responded without a hint of humor in his voice whatsoever. Ari blinked at him in confusion. A thief? Shouldn't we be looking for a ghost? We don't believe in that crap. We are the occult club in the name only. Sakai waved her hand and laughed. A looked back and forth between the two club members, puzzlement clear on her face. Seriously, even Ash? Especially Ash, Sakai snorted. Why she joined this club in the first place, still a complete mystery. I've asked her a million questions, but I still feel like I hardly know her myself. Huh. Harry looked towards the sky and blankly watched the class pass by. She'd momentarily forgotten why she was up here, swept up in her own emotions as she was. Despite claims spending time up here with the club certainly made it feel as though she was becoming cursed. That's the plan, she shouted inside her head. Her eyes widened like saucers. She discreetly glanced at Sakai, who was now checking out the field alongside Takada. A metaphorical light bulb flashed above Zeri's head before she gestured towards the very tree in question. Actually, the track team captain and I found some cigarettes by the plum tree. If you don't mind, maybe we can investigate that as well. It's supposed to be related, Takada pondered, rubbing his chin with his index finger. We'll go down and take a closer look after school then. Thank you, Air smiled as they headed towards the roof door, glad that he still retained his sober enthusiasm. Airi looked back at Sakai and her shoulder to study her reaction, but Airi half expected the girl had the usual caddish smile plastered on her face. She certainly didn't seem to be displaying any nervous tics, but Airi told herself not to be fooled. Something told her that this type of girl found enjoyment in the chaos she sowed. The three reconvened as soon as classes were over, and once they gathered around the tree, the club president went straight to work. After some initial expecting, he offered this rough report. This apparently had gone unnoticed by the privy of the littering issue. There were small dents in the tree that were deep enough to identify and be deliberately made. Upon confirming with Airy, the size of the dent seemed to match the missing track spikes. Perhaps someone used those spikes in a cursing ritual. Have you ever heard an ox hour shrine visit? If I recall correctly, that needs to be done 7 times in a row for the effect to take place. So if we're lucky, we have time to catch them in the act. I see, Airy groaned in desperation. Who would do something like this? Isn't there such thing as ritual that doesn't ruin public property? I've heard of the ritual, Sakai says, sidestepping Airy's fuming. Doesn't it involve nails and shawls? Dolls? How exactly would track spikes? Suddenly Takada brought up a finger silencing her. Hold that thought. What? Sakai asked, her expression communicating she's already given up on finishing said thought. Takada surveyed the surroundings, turning in a few circles when his eyes seemed to land on the school building. I feel as though someone is watching us. Huh? A chill ran through Aries' spine. She only realized how weak she really was when it came to horror stories. Where? Takada seemed deep in thought, tilting his head as he continued observing with a careful eye. It was then the sudden sound of approaching footsteps took their attention away from the supposed presence, snapping both Takada and Eri out of their tense postures. You brought the occult club? You really lack sense sometimes. You are aware that the identity of the members that make up this club, right? Eri could offer no response, instead looking down and thinking of what to say, how to communicate her plan, unraveling as it was, in bringing them here. Sakai Sensei wasn't much help, so hey, cut her some slack. I mean, if anyone can find the culprits, they'd be fellow deviants, right? She playfully bowed towards them. Please hurry, I can't perform luck without my lucky pole. Well, I've got my suspicions as well, but thanks for coming out here anyway. Come on, Captain, you too. I mean no offense, she said, frowning. I wouldn't be surprised if Ash was smoking around here out of spite. Ha, I can't help but worry about her. Saki grinned, jerking upward as if her interest was finally caught. My, you sound a bit bitter. A slight flush rose to Tsukimi's face, but she maintained her stoic body language. If you're implying I'm upset you took her from us, you're very mistaken. Just look at her current state. I'd say it's a good thing she quit. Captain, Aries' voice rose, but as usual, it didn't affect anything. So you say, Takara cut in. From what I've seen, she still seems plenty fast. Guys, if that's how you think of things, then I'm glad. No need for any hard feelings between our clubs. Then, he, in a slow and relaxed gait, stepped past Airy. This is where equipment shed, right? Oh, yeah. Someone has to be messing with me, Airy thought. It would have been better if it's just standing watch here the entire time. Yep, that's all of them, Abara reported with a wry smile. Equipment's back, that's all that matters. Tsukishimi then made a point of giving Eri the same dirty look from this morning. We'll have to remember to keep a closer eye on this shed, alright? Ah, of course. Eri nodded, then turned to address the Colt Club. I'm sorry for bringing you here for nothing. If it's alright with you, Takada begins casually. I'd like to keep investigating. Could be a deliberate, possible, mean-spirited prank. Are you sure? I mean, if it's just a prank, no stopping him now that he's like this. His curiosity is piqued. Sakai picked up inspecting the previously missing vaulting part. Personally, I'm a bit more concerned with those cigarettes myself. I don't like being caught up in false accusations. Bah, seriously, who's stupid enough to smoke on school grounds? Aries side-eyed the girl at this. As she says, I don't have things in halves. I don't do things in halves. We're doing it out of our own volition, so no need to be polite for polite gratitude. No, no, either way as her words shut off, Nakata stepped out of the shed. Sakai followed shortly after him, gently dropping the pole in Tsukimi's hands. The three track members glanced at one another. Why don't I grab some snacks? That kind that'll cool you guys off. Captain, do I have your permission? Ah, that's fine with me. Just don't get sidetracked, okay? That's all that said as Tsukimi turned the pole and prior to taking her own leave, issued an order to Abara. I'm going to return this to Hiragagi. You better stick it out and keep an eye out around here. Her eyes narrowed once more, signaling her intent. Yes, Captain. He chuckled with the usual sarcastic tone. As Eri, who just finished a short chat with Obara, stepped out of the dinky shed, she spotted the two cult members crouched beside the same tree. He jogged up to them and patted Takada on the back rapidly. I'm gonna get snacks. Would you two like anything? Takada shut up. What caused Ari to take a step backwards, however, was Sokka, who was holding a cigarette between her lips. Uh, it's not a new one, Sokka say simply as she answered anything. Ari just blankly stared at her. I just want to compare brands. She continued making things only more confusing. Ari's brain felt fuzzy. I wouldn't blame you for suspecting her. He's most certainly acts the part. Ari thought for a moment. That was the original reason why she was doing all of this, but after seeing Sakai and Takara defend Ash when all Eri could do was stand there helplessly, she couldn't help but believe otherwise now. She felt pathetic about her wishy-washy frame of mind. Truthfully, I did suspect you initially, Sakai-san. Wow, we're being honest. Now somehow I get the feeling that you wouldn't do anything that awful, even if you are a little crazy. Eri wrung her hands together nervously, unacquainted with being so blunt, especially straight to the person of interest's face. To her relief, all Sakai did was bark at a laugh, and even Takada's lip quirked in amusement. You should probably spend more time with us before making that judgment. Wait, which judgment? Anyway, I'll go for a Mont Blanc. Hey? Soon enough, Eri came jogging back to the field, bags of snack rustling in hand. She distributed all the items save for those picked out for the occult members who were nowhere to be seen. Eri asked the nearest runner where they went and informed the teacher caught sight of Sakai with a cigarette in her mouth after the two unsuspectingly broke off in completely different directions. Tsukisimi once again appeared behind Eri without much of a sound. They really are unequivocally delinquents, aren't they? Her shoulders shook with laughter. I've never seen something so ridiculous. Even I find it hard to imagine Ash hanging out with such unruly crew. But it's not though any of us knew much about her in the first place. Eri found herself not being able to say anything back. In fact, she had no clue what she would want to convey to this individual. Did she want to laugh long and agree, or did she want to call out Tsukisimi for increasingly unbecoming behavior? It was much easier to fall into the prior. It was the type of response she always resorted to after all, but she lacked energy for even that. Her change of demeanor didn't go unnoticed by the captain, and soon the tension was at least partially released as she let out a quick sigh, coupled by a quick pat on Aries' shoulder. They took off towards the building, so I suspect they ran inside. If you're keen on seeking out their help, you can start there, I suppose. And as usual, demanded, Tsukimi deemed the conversation finished and turned away from Eri before Eri could reply. All Eri could do was look up in exasperation. She supposed she would have to scour the school and find them. Suppose let's start with the roof, Eri thought with a sigh. Eri thought it was an odd choice of accessory for someone like Ash. She only noticed it recently, but it was hard to miss on the few occasions they crossed paths. The new addition was pretty character, perhaps from a magical girl show, affixed to her phone. Ari once thought she could recognize the character from her childhood, and with that, perhaps strike up a conversation by recollection ultimately failed her. The facts aside, the charm in question was now held in the mouth of a cat, which was perched right by the school's front doors. There was no time to think. Ari shoved the snacks into a box and darted after it. She called out in such a sweet voice as she could muster, which became difficult, considering her increasing worry for the charm being swallowed whole. At this time it paused, and the moment she thought it might lay in her hands, it slipped merely paces away in an almost mocking manner difficult not to take personally. Finally, it disappeared behind the corner of the building. Closing her mind to her senses, she ran with reckless abandon forward, flashing past those her classmates who informed her of the occult club's existence this morning, and then past Sakai and Takada, who seemed to be running in the opposite direction, teachers still hot on their trail. At last, she stopped behind the school when she realized both that she had run a full circle around the campus perimeter and that the cat was no longer anywhere in sight. Air was unwilling to surrender, but she simply couldn't move another step, so she leaned against the wall to catch her breath. When Ari thought she could finally continue onward, her face wrinkled in a path as she felt a pang of oncoming stomach ache. She did her best to ignore it, but in an instant her mind started flashing towards the suspects behind this sudden attack. Well, she thought, that's much should be obvious. She was referring to, of course, to the lunch her brother delivered that morning. He checked the food herself, but was the poison meant to be inconspicuous? It took a moment to realize how silly she was being. Masaru wasn't by any means a bad kid. Would he be the type to play up some prank on her? It was then that it all caught up to her, that in a wave of anxiety of magnitude, at least as far as she could recall, Mary knew not whether she'd ever experienced before. Her eyes darted around as her chest tightened to an almost painful degree. At first she thought all she needed was some water, but things quickly spiraled out of control, her mastery of breathing second nature since birth slipping away. She didn't quite collapse, but fell to her knees fast enough for any onlooker had they been there, to easily mistake the motion as such. In a state of panic, she, in a manner not dissimilar to just moments prior, desperately attempted to piece together why this might be happening. This was Kuzumi Era, the tiger of the track team, who, with her one-track mind, was meant to single-handedly put their name on the map, at least according to herself. A stomachache is one thing, but how could something as measly and intangible as stress get in her way? She'd never been as happy as she is now. She never found something she could so readily put her all in. She was always running, so why? She thought of the faces of her teammates. In the dark void of her mind, something about them seemed off. The sensation of being completely alone, no matter how ridiculous, absurd, or far from the truth it was, wouldn't leave her. In those miserable few seconds, which almost felt like an eternity, she, at least physically, truly was alone. It was in that solitude that the core truth of everything revealed itself to her. Harry had denied it systematically up until that point in time, and in such a time of vulnerability, the floodgates were battered, allowing those of unwanted feelings to seep through. The burden of the track team, of its mocking members, of its consistent failure to reach its old heights, all clogged up her vision, suffocating her semi-literally. Vestige, vestige of hatred swarmed up in her, and her mind gave way to her voice, the ugly thoughts of her heart so long ignored. Why is everything on me? Can't they put a quarter of my time I put in? How long do I have to do this until someone appreciates my effort? Is everyone conspiring against me? This got really dark really quickly. Okay. For once, she allowed all too human sense of self-indulgence tar the life she had built up, and to her shame, it felt good. Good to put the burdens on others. She wasn't the one messing up. It was those who couldn't be bothered to put away the equipment themselves. It was those who made every excuse not to intend practice, those who groaned in annoyance whenever she attempted to psych them up. Everything felt so twisted and in this strange reality that she couldn't help but smile, though her breathing showed a few signs of slowing down. At some point, and this was somewhat dramatic of her, this she would readily admit today, she believed that she might be breathing her very last breaths, which only made her body gasp for air faster. Thought she might use those final moments to physically utter all the curses against her teammate that she could, when suddenly a quiet voice rang out in her ears. Kozumi-san. She recognized the owner of the voice right away. It was a soft, muttered, even barely audible over the sound of Aries' drumming heartbeat. However, in the expanse of darkness, there was a jail of her own mind. It was the only thing grounding her. So, gasping for breath, Aries' voice came out pinched and hoarse. It's passing, just hold on. Despite Aries' eyes being squeezed shut, she could sense the person nodding beside her, and soon only the sound of wind and trees filled Aries' ears as she laid there on the ground, a warm presence waiting beside her. Once Aerie opened her eyes, Ash's face appeared in Aries' field of vision, her expression hardly denoting concern. That wasn't any of consequence to Aerie yet, for the simple fact that in Ash's arms sat the cat. That cat sat looking perfectly relaxed and content. Somehow, in spite of circumstances, white hot shame didn't overtake Aries' body like it would in anyone else witnessed her in that state. Rather, Aries' face, which had previously been frozen, relaxed instantaneously, as though she and the other girl were on the same page. Suddenly, Aries had some strange feeling that they'd been friends this whole year, though they hadn't even exchanged words. Of course, this is all imagined per her typical habit of getting ahead of herself, and she now, wanting nothing more than to continue their conversation, quickly said with a weak smile, "Thank you. It was just a stomach ache. It's gone, I think. Do you need to go to the infirmary?" Aries shook her head. She had already begun to regain her composure and senses, making quick work of wiping away the dots that had been tearing away at her. More importantly, that cat. You should at least get out of this heat. You're sweating. Ah, that's been chasing it around. I'm glad it wasn't wasted effort. Ash looked at the cat, which had climbed out of her arms and was now using her shoulders as a pillow. I see. Ash's voice was unaffected and emotionless and yet it had a soothing effect, as though it was the only thing Aerie needed at that point. Finally, she remembered the ice candy in her pockets. In the pit of her stomach, she found an upcoming gesture that could only be symbolic, a way to usher Ash back into the track team. Aerie felt Ash, the abandoner, could be the savior to bring the team back to life, as if offering this childish act could produce some miracle of Ash quitting smoking and returning their team to its former albeit short-lived glory. Split this with me? Ash blinked. Twice she blinked before could taking the candy. Even in her state, Aerie perceived Ash's hand and then her lips quivering slightly, which almost made Aerie laugh out loud. Not earlier. Sorry. I wasn't avoiding you if I gave off that impression. So, do you recognize me? Harry paid no heed to the embarrassing thing coming out of her mouth at that point, slightly delirious as she still was. Of course, Kozemi Airy, the one who always loses things. Yeah, that's right. That's me. Harry laughed self-deprecatingly. Of course, nobody thought of her as the tiger of the track team. She was just seen as an airhead. I'm one to talk, Ash said, gesturing to the charm in her hand. Really help me out. Thank you. Harry blinked up at her, and soon enough a genuine laugh erupted from her chest, as if the release of glee was what made way for the air to freely enter her lungs. Whatever help she provided, or didn't provide, the moment gave Airy the reassurance she had been needing longer than she allowed herself to realize. Without another word, Ash lifted Airy to her feet and began to help her into the shade of the school. With a satisfying crack, Airy split the strawberry flakes ice candy in half. She handed one to Ash, who rather than put it in her mouth immediately as Airy did, seemed to be enjoying the cool surface on her palms instead, letting the cold drops of condensation drip from her fingers. Ash looked down at the empty hallway before explaining the situation. The cat followed me back to this school and stole the charm out of my hand. I'm sorry if it caused you trouble. Huh? It's not your fault. No, I should have held onto the charm tighter. Ash scratched at her chin. I never expected him to pounce at me. It's because I got too close to him yesterday. I'm still not quite. The remainder of Ash's story quickly exceeded the amount of words Aries heard come out of her mouth during the entirety of their track team together. As if it happened, Ash found a cat stuck in the tree the day prior. Much to her chagrin, she had never learned how to climb a tree and so tried different methods to secure him. First, she stacked some unused jumbo boxes, which turned out to be left abandoned by a forgetful Airy. But that still didn't provide the height she needed. The track and field equipment shelf was left unlocked, so she borrowed a few more tools. You tried the pole vault to the top of the tree? No, I was using the prod the cat down. As you can guess, that didn't work. He's a very stubborn cat. That's when I put the spikes on. Using track spikes to climb a tree, huh? Apparently, it was that day that Ash required a new necessary skill with the help of spike shoots, of course. By the time the cat was let down, Ari had just locked the equipment room, and being able to access it, Ash hid the gear in an inconspicuous spot to be retrieved the next day. That was what Ash had been looking out for on the rooftop to find the right timing while avoiding any unnecessary run-ins with the track members. Incidentally, it was only a bit later that the cat she saved returned to the school and stole her charm. That's the gist of it. It sounds like I have even more to apologize for. No, no, no one was really, no one was inconvenienced really. Except his guest Hiragagi, Hiragi, Ragi, Hiragagi. I keep saying Gagi. Oh, just the first year who won't participate unless she gets to use the exact vaulting pole. The captain always tells her off for that. I'm not sure I've ever told anyone this, but it couldn't hurt now. During competitions, I always wear a specific set of socks. Ash looked up fondly as if Ash looked up as if fondly recalling a memory. Yes, the holy pair I called it. Also, always ate eggs on rice the night before each race. Huh. I wasn't expecting you to be so superstitious, Aries said, tipping her head. Of course, Sake's earlier claim regarding Ash's absolute skepticism towards ghosts factored into that preconception. And superstitions are two different things. Superstitions are dangerous to rely on, but the rituals are perfectly harmless. Ash raised her finger unknowingly. Ari pressed her lips together and nodded, trying to suppress a laugh. You know, that doesn't really differentiate them. Ash cleared her throat. All that aside, what were you doing out there, Kusami-san? Hasn't practice started? Oh, actually, I was looking for your club mates. I wanted to thank them with ice candies, but they were missing by the time I came back. I see. I can give them a call if you'd like. When she asked me to call, she relayed to Ari the present message, which went as follows. We're in hiding right now. We think we might have figured out the perpetrator behind the cigarettes. Another Ash, funnily enough, smoking in the bathroom stall. Ah, Kozomi brought us snacks? Tell her thanks, but you two had better finish them up before they melt. As to where we are, I'll give you a hint, between the lions. With a sigh, Ash closed her flip phone and stashed it away, obediently eating her ice candy as the president suggested. She then shrugged at Ari, who managed to hear the whole conversation. She listened to the entirety of Ash retelling, then ensured that her ears weren't deceiving her. I don't mean to sound rude, and you must get this asked a lot, but how'd you get caught up in a club in the first place? Don't you ever miss it? Running? From out the classroom window, Ari watched leaves dance through the air as breeze passed through the trees. Despite having poured her all into the sport herself, she had an odd feeling that if she were asked the same question, she wouldn't know how to answer. To be honest, I'm not sure, Ash said softly, recalling Ari's thoughts. Back then, I would focus on nothing but running, and now I feel as though I'm focusing on nothing entirely. Somehow it feels as though there's no difference between the two. Ari started to gnaw on the ice candy. Seeing this, Ash did the same. Between crunchy bites, Ash laughed quietly. The occult club's useless. Sakai sensei certainly won't let me forget that. At least now I find myself not minding the wasted time. Ash tightened her grip on the charm still in her hand. Someone once told me that you should focus on your own happiness. It sounds selfish, doesn't it? Later on, he added that if you manage to do that, those that care about you will become happy as a result. She shrugged, flushing slightly at the sentimentality of it all. Ari tilted her head. It could stand to be a bit more nuanced, but I get the point. Hmm, I feel like I've misunderstood you this whole time, Ash. They exchanged short smiles but remained silent afterwards, leaving things there. While they shared some common ground, Ari developed a sense that despite getting along decently well, they weren't destined to become any more involved with one another. Of course, there was no indication that Ash had found happiness either. She was perhaps lost in her own way, but she at least seemed to have a better vantage point to which to search for. They both had their own worlds they now belonged to. In comparison, Ash besides her, Ari never stopped to take a look at herself to see if she was truly happy. When Ari eventually explained to Tsukishima all that had transpired, the captain couldn't help but let out a small burst of laughter. Ari couldn't tell whether or not the captain was laughing genuinely out of spite, but none of that mattered anymore. The other Ash, the one Sake sensei seemed to have initially deemed the good Ash, and a few of his friends were suspended soon after the incident as well. Apparently, the watching eyes that Takada felt during their tree inspection belonged to this delinquent. He changed his usual smoking spot shortly after in a desperate attempt to avoid suspicion, which was clearly to no avail. The ice candy area initially bought for Takada and Sakai had melted and gone to waste, but even then, she bought new ones for them as a thank you gift. Sakai waved her off, saying we really didn't do much to the president's disappointment. A later heard rumors that the bathroom stall the good Ash was using flew off its hinges from being kicked in, but despite the floating rumor, no one confirmed whether that was Sakai's doing. The vibrant green leaves turned into a array of golden and apricot leaves. Then the tree's branches were devoid of color and life entirely, and soon enough the blushing pink petals fluttered down to the sky like confetti. As Aya transitioned to her third year of high school, she would continue hearing rumors about the occult club. With the sudden disappearance of the club president, theories of Takada's dying of mysterious illness or of school spirit's curse spread widely. Building on this particularly odd rumor that was the new first year member was the ghost that wished to fill Takada's vacancy. In addition, stories that Sakai threatened Ash with a knife broke out after she was suspended, never returning. As for Aries, she only decided that she was still one to test herself to see how far she can go with her team despite the many challenges it presented. But she wouldn't run in hopes of bringing the track team back to its former glory. She would run for the simple fact that she loved running, and all that she could do was hope that her passion would spread to the others around her. To end all, to that end, all she could do was for the sake of what? Why am I struggling to read? To that end, all she could do for the sake of the one who helped her realize this, however inadvertently, was wish her some fortune in calling her quest for her calling. As the days and seasons passed and Ari continued to run with all her might, she would catch glimpses of Ash on the roof every once in a blue moon, sometimes with a new first year and sometimes alone. Bitter, bitterness, loneliness, and emptiness. Ari wondered what emotions stirred in Ash's heart as she would watch the small people below go on about their lives. Every now and then, Ari contemplated going up to the roof and finding an answer for herself, but she, for the duration of the year, never felt ready to reach out to Ash. The isolated, dusty blue hue of the rooftop became a realm for Ash and Ash alone, like a star shining faintly all by its lonesome in the wide backdrop. Nonetheless, Ari would always find her gaze wandering towards the top of the school, and before she knew it, the high school lives were over. There was no sight of Ash at the graduation ceremony. For some reason, that day had stuck in her mind all this time, every little minute detail able to replay itself with incredible precision. How odd for a day that merely felt like a short drinking break, a mere rest stop in the middle of a lifelong train ride, to have such a lasting effect on her. Aries sits up with the yawn before rounding up all her belongings. As she steps towards the soon opening door, she dials her family's landline, which she has still is memorized by heart. Hello, this is Kazumi Fishery. Aries smiles into her phone upon hearing the familiar, albeit now slightly deeper voice. Hamasaru. Eri, he gasps excitedly, which is soon followed by an animated background noises from other family members. Hey everyone, she laughs and calls out loudly, hoping they can hear her over the receiver. She can now hear them fighting for the phone, only causing her laughter to escalate. I'm about to get off the train. Could you tell Dad to come meet me? Sure thing. And Eri? Masaru trails, voice softening. Yeah? Welcome back. Eri looks at the window as the train comes to a stop, those words bringing a beaming, winsome smile to her face. I'm home. Arriving at Mokuzai Station. Mokuzai. The next station is Kusa. The doors on the right side will open. After several harsh winters and warm springs pass, Eri feels like she's able to blossom into the person she strived to be. She's still the same airheaded girl who runs towards her ambition with all her might, but now she remembers to slow down every now and then, taking her time and taking in her surroundings. Despite everything, she can proudly say she does not harbor any regrets. However, as the train doors open and the chilling autumn wind brushes through the gaps, her mind drifts back to that school rooftop. While what the hell is that word? White Haman Hamalambas? Clouds against the searing blue and raven hair fluttering in the breeze on the back of her eyelids. She cannot help but wonder, what kind of person has she blossomed into? Oh, that's the end? Oh, that's a good prologue. Man, I don't know how long that took me. Um, lesbians? Possibly? Lesbians. I definitely wanna when this full game comes out, I definitely want to go into it and play the full thing. Cause yeah, no, that's a good way to like introduce a game, like get people hooked on a story of what's gonna happen. Um, the title makes me a little worried that characters are gonna die in the full game. But yeah, that was Tomorrow Will Be Dying. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm sorry I struggled so much to read throughout this. I think I just got off work, so maybe it's just I'm just tired. But um, I will be playing this full when this comes out. I definitely need to play this when this comes out. I will try and keep an eye on it to see when it releases. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in another one. Bye bye.